Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Good news, bad news. Oh, Phil, what's good news, bad news? It flew well, then it crashed, is probably what it is. And then even into Mac here as well. Oh, what's good news, bad news? I wonder. All right, where should we start? Oh, we shall start with the link I put already in our chat that Mark put up, and it's something about legislation. Mark, what do we need to know in the UK?
So it's just because of Brexit's gone square-shaped. Basically, at the minute, it's still not happening. It looks like they're going to push ahead and just go, we're leaving, and it looks like we might not get the C markings. So the European C markings, or the EU C marking, as it's known, the C2, the C1, C4, it looks like the UK may introduce its own C marking of some kind, or kite marking.
Do they still have kite marking over there? Is that still a thing?
I have seen it around, but I've got a sneaky feeling that kite marking might be making a comeback in a few ways. But it looks like they're just making sure that they're covering themselves, and it will mean that we're a really small market though, and it could delay us getting new kit, because if it's not, we're tiny compared to Europe. So we are the second biggest in Europe in modelling world, for example, but in the drone world, we don't stand a cat in. Why would you bother if it makes it awkward or hard to get that aircraft, done for the UK? Why would you bother?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I wonder what implications that's going to have for if you want to take yourself off into Europe to fly on a gig. I wonder if they completely pull out, then the Europeans are going to pull up the ladder, aren't they, as regard pilot licensing, aircraft licensing, all of it.
It just make it, from a drone perspective, it could make it very interesting. If you buy a UK aircraft and you want to go into mainland Europe to fly it, it'll be like, well, hang on a minute. I mean, feel sorry for the guys in Ireland, because Northern Ireland and Ireland, it's only a hop step across the border, isn't it? It's really confusing for them. They might have to have two. I doubt it will happen where they need two aircraft, but they'll probably have to have aircraft that's got it's dual marked in some format. I would like to assume, but we assume too much at times, as we know, and that's when it gets pear-shaped.
And was this expected or unexpected? And James, if you're listening out, because the chat seems to be delayed and whatever, I have sent an invite to your Facebook page if you want to come and have abuse, because no doubt you've got some thoughts on this one. Well, gosh, I wonder what other implications there are for manned aircraft. If this is just one little, and here he is. He's come along. There we are. So, James, yes, we're talking about these CE markings. You must be very excited about it.
I literally couldn't think of anything better to do on a Tuesday evening than talk about CE markings. But I've not really seen the news on this. So what's the issue?
Well,
the short version is that the UK is not looking like it's not going to follow the European Union's C marking system. So they're going to have our own C markings, or kite, if you like. If you remember the old kites, you might be a bit young, James, to remember. Young to remember the kites by the looks of it. But we used to have like a kite. So there is a chance, and it looks like we might end up with something other than C-marked aircraft. It will have to have a UK mark on it.
I've never really understood the whole CE marking thing, because don't you put CE marking on like toys? I always thought that if we're drones and stuff, we should be sort of going for a level beyond toys. It just seems a bit, if you go to the CAA and you turn around and say, hey, look, give me an operational safety case because my drone has a CE marking, they'll laugh at you. So, what value is there in the CE mark, I guess, is the question.
Well, it's, if the rest of the European Union says if you don't have a CE mark, you're not coming in, then it's instantly got a value.
It was a bit more than just a CE mark, though, wasn't it? It was a classification system to ensure aircraft fall into one of 3 or 4 different standards. The problem you had with this was it was all based on the standards were put in place to allow them to legislate off the back of it. At the end of the day, if you look at C1, C2, C3, etc., they were pillars to hold the legislation up, depending on what you could do above. So, for instance, in C1, it was sub 250 grams. C2 was sub 900 grams. C3 was 4.5 kilos. Am I right, Marcus? This is all off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while since I've read this document at least 16 times.
Slightly wrong.
Slightly wrong.
So this isn't about CE marking. This is about the C1, C2, C3 category,
which is still classed. It was a CE mark to come in as part of it. Right. I was just drafting through the documentation there to see what they've said, and they seem to be picking the bones out of certain elements. The problem is, no one is ready for any of this legislation globally, let alone EU. We have not a single manufacturer, not one, who has even openly committed to making an aircraft that complies. Now, that is a strange position to be in.
And if you ask the DFT and you go directly to them, they have no one that can tell you how to get an aircraft certified.
No.
So it wouldn't matter, even if you had a brand new Phantom 5 and you wanted to get it certified, no chance. They don't know how. They've got nothing at all at the minute.
Well, if it falls under the same as a CE, it would then be self-certification, because the Europe loves doing self-certification. It worked so well in the emissions industry on cars. It's worked extremely well for VW and other manufacturers. Why not introduce a self-certification system to allow manufacturers to say, hey, my aircraft is compliant? The American approach was very different. If we look at the NPRM, that was very much the CAA is giving you a green light to sell your aircraft only if they say yes. And it would have been interesting what would happen to Chinese manufacturers once they submitted the paperwork. But that doesn't appear to be happening at the moment.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see. And can it really not be a surprise? I suppose we might say, especially if you're one of the other manufacturers who's very quickly or quick to now label some others as in the toy category. Can it be no surprise that DJI is not rushing to bring new aircraft out at all at the moment? It's two double-edged sword, isn't it? We've got COVID, and now we've got, well, what's the legislation going to do?
I can't think one good reason to release a traditional new aircraft right now. You can't go out. We're at an all-time low from a work point of view in the UK and many other countries. So financially, everyone's being hit. What you are seeing is, if you look at DJI, they're very much angling their product releases at either pro users or cheaper low-end products that you can use at home, like the new Osmo Mobile 4 and things like that. So, drones really isn't where anything exciting is at right now. And you've still got Skydio selling in very low numbers. I was watching a post on RC Groups this week of a guy who's been waiting 6 months and he's finally had the go ahead. And that's I'd love to know how many they've shipped out based on that amount of pre-order time. I remember the Mavic launch. If anyone remembers, there was a delay in that, and it was a 17-day delay. In the end, it was 17 days. That's all it was. The world would make you think it was 6 months, but it was 17 days from shipping. And the world went upside down. And my understanding is, in that 17 days, the orders they had bet all of their last 3 product launches. But I don't feel the S2 is in that category. I don't think for one moment you've had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people place orders. Is it even tens of thousands? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Yet they're still unable to ship. For the most part, it's vaporware. And I hate to use that term, but it literally is virtually vaporware at this point.
So I've just been doing my homework that I've just been set by the team, and I can't say anything about the C markings. I think it's just a CE marking. So the C, I'm not too worried. If they went and scrapped the C1, C2, C3 thing, I think I'd be pretty naffed. But I can't see anything in there about them scrapping that. I think it's just a CE marking, which, as far as I know, you basically send off a form and then they send you back a sticker. So I don't know the full details of it, so you have to excuse my ignorance. But I think the C1, C2, C3 stuff is still going to happen.
Okay, that does kind of make sense then.
But is it, James?
Because the CE marking is like a European label, basically. It's not kind of like a standard. It's just well, I guess it is a standard in some respects, but
yeah, it is a standard in the sense of it. Something must comply with it, but interestingly, I think it's more broad, isn't it? A CE is that it's not going to kill you. So the plug is of a certain standard, the mains plug is of a certain standard, and things like that. It's not specific to the product category that the product falls into. It's just a generalization, isn't it?
Yeah, so basically we'll still be able to fly our drones, but it might electrocute us before we get to fly it.
Well, let's see what they do.
That's a good rumor I've just thought of. Why don't we start spreading the rumor that Boris is going to change the shape of all plugs, and you're going to have to replace every plug in your house as the round ones.
Yeah, we've still got the round ones. And you go a lot of other places in Africa, and they've got the UK plugs, and then some people have even got the European ones. Goodness me. Yeah, it'd be nice to have
wires to get it down here.
Do you? Yeah.
Like under Ian's bench.
You're welcome to election. Boo, get it. Bob Boo, even. Good evening. Now in the UK, you've had a delivery trial though. Everyone's going nuts for the NHS delivery trials with the rainbow-coloured delivery drones. What's your opinion of that, James? Oh,
it's very interesting. James, spot on.
Muted.
Sorry, I just realised I was on mute. So is this the space agency one?
The NHS.
Yes.
That big shiny one. I think it's it's a great looking drone, and I think I think drones have got like a really big place in the medical field. What the real important thing to crack in all of this is how we're going to integrate drones with manned aviation, and unfortunately, whoever does come up with a solution to that probably isn't going to make front page of the BBC News because it's not exciting enough. But those in the drone industry those who know what they're doing will realise the big headline, which will be, oh, we've just got permission to go and fly in unsegregated airspace without a TDA. That is going to be the big news out there, and I think whoever does that first is going to do very well. So that's the real challenge to make. But certainly we need lots of platforms out there. We need Apian are a great bunch of guys. They've got a lot of expertise in the medical field, and I know them personally, and they're working very hard. So they're also working on the sort of medical side of things as well. So actually how you interface that drone system with the medical user, which I think, within the drone industry, we pretty much forget that side of it. We kind of like, oh, well, we can get a drone from A to B, but then like no one actually knows what to do with it. So that side of it is really good. And, I know there's a few others in there. Is it the British Drone Association or British Drone Consortium or something like that? So there's some good guys in there, and they're doing they're moving things forward. Whether they're moving things forward on a technical level, we'll wait and see on that front. But they're getting word out there, which is the thing,
isn't it? The actual sort of the delivery part is, as you say, it's almost like a plug and play sort of a thing. It's does it really work for the customer? Does it? Because it doesn't really matter if the thing flies from one hospital to a lab. and it's through three gates and across a fence or something. It's not it's not so good as not quite as fit for purpose. So yeah, it is joining up those bits. I think sort of almost every drone project needs to have somebody brought in that has nothing to do with drones or hasn't designed or developed them, and is a chief common sense officer or something, just come and say, well, no, don't do it like that. That's
why are you
rubbish,
doing
mate.
that?
Yeah, why are you doing that? Well, because
It's interesting, James, you constantly talk about the need to integrate drones into manned airspace. He's gone. He's just walked off.
you see, that's the effect you have on people, Ian.
He heard you coming. Mind you, that does look a lot better. I think that's much better.
Nicola wasn't here to just disappear today, so James is taking up his mantle.
He's
Is he?
got to get a drink, isn't he? That's what
He's got to get alcohol. Yeah. Because guys, you have to realize that James is an alcoholic, so he can't go without at least 2 minutes without a whiskey or something in his hand.
I'm trying to get a bit of light on my face because I literally look like a heroin addict.
Well, we weren't going to say anything.
My face is really dark.
Well, what I can say, James, is this: you talk about the need to integrate aircraft into manned airspace. There is no manned aviation at the moment. So at the moment, we've got free will. We can do whatever we want right now. Yet we're not seeing a mass uptake of testing or anything. We're seeing little bits.
Manned aviation's doing a sterling job of killing people at the moment. It's doing a really
yes.
good job in this. There's no
That's
manned aviation.
Sport, Gary. They do that for sport. That's just an everyday occurrence. That's you can't have a plane without someone dying. Drones still have a safety record of we don't really do fatalities.
Time. It's just a matter of time.
You see the 737-8 Air Max is looking like it's getting cleared for flight in Europe.
Yeah, because there's no one going to be on it.
And there was a great story of Sully, or Sully, who had landed on the Hudson. He turned around and went, no, it's not safe.
Yeah.
I would listen to that guy if I was everyone else.
And a lot of other pilots as well, without quite the clout that he's got. But we've clearly moved into this brave new world where technically the delivery can be done, be it from a 1 kilo platform to a 100 kilo platform, and it is just now whether it's fit for purpose. James has been about aircraft out the way. It is actually quite easy. Just get them up and out the way, get them above 2K, and they're beginning to have. I'm seeing now in the general aviation press lots and lots of chatter about, we might actually have to have electronic conspicuity. And what's quite fun is that the drone world, gliding world, ballooning world, paragliding world are all saying, yeah, we've all been doing that for a while actually.
Well, on that front, there's some quite interesting news. I don't know whether I meant to say this or not, but there was about 30 people in the room at the time, so I'm going to say it. There's enough people who know it. I'm sure it's out there already. But the CAA already put a date of I think January 2024 was their proposal on when ADS-B or some other form of electronic conspicuity will be mandated. I can see kind of like the stepping stone approach, I think, of how things are going to evolve. So the CAA are putting through a consultation within the next few months, which is basically looking to amend some policy around TMZs, which is transponder mandatory zones. So currently, if you're within a transponder mandatory zone, you either have to be carrying ADS-B or a MODES transponder. The problem is with MODES transponders is you can only go and position an aircraft using multilateration, which is the accuracy is pretty diabolical. So if they what the CAA are proposing is, and I've coined the term pop-up TMZs, is that basically an ANSP can create a pop-up TMZ within an area that they are controlling. And that TMZ can be mandated to have just ADS-B within it. So what you could get then is a requirement for certain pockets of airspace. And this is within controlled airspace. So bear in mind, it's not going to be across the UK, but there's a lot of Class D airspace around, especially over cities. you know, most drone deliveries are probably going to be over cities, because that's where people live and that's where all of the interesting stuff is. So if you think about it, actually it solves about 60-70% of the problem. And if you can go and get you know, if you can go and get all of these pop-up TMZs coming around everywhere, then there are solutions here. Now the problem is, how do you make drones conspicuous? And I think I can see some shift in the way that people are thinking. Is currently people are using, I think it's 1090 megahertz or whatever it is, 1080, 1090 megahertz for manned aviation. But what if we use like 978 megahertz for unmanned aircraft, and then kind of joined everything up on the ground? So you could see.
Yeah, well, that's happening with FLARM and OGN and all the others. So it's already happening. And 360 Radar in the UK is doing exactly that. And in conjunction with that Rosetta lot, the Pilot Aware lot, who then not only do that, not only just chuck it together but they throw it back up at the sky in a unified messaging format, so that somebody with one of those Sky Demon units and one of their receivers can see all modes of traffic that's making itself conspicuous. So, funnily enough, it's already happening in the UK.
You're saying too much, Gary. You're saying too much.
No, there's no secrets. If I know about it, it's hardly going to be a secret. But so it's yeah.
So what's Drone Delivery Week's gadget he's got there?
What's that? Say again.
Drone Delivery Week. He's got like some.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
he spelled week wrong.
Yeah, but you want to have a better antenna on it. You want to have an antenna like this on it. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. One way of doing Open Glider Network with a great big fat battery, or
I can't get mine to work right.
Here's another way. If you want to be super podiomatic, there's another super podiomatic way of doing it. They work very well. That's about air to air, sort of 80, 90 kilometers. Air to ground about 15 k's. And look, yeah, Bruce has got one.
Just one of my fans.
Yeah. I can't get mine to behave a minute.
You can't get it to behave. Have you got a receiver? Have you got two or still one?
Just one. It's the user though. But it's going. You know what it's going in, don't you? So when it's working, you know what it's going in.
Yeah. Proper airplane. And then also,
Ian's just blinded himself.
Yeah, by causing a fire or something. You're saying there.
You're just installing a USB port, Ian.
Yeah.
just something else. Yeah, don't look at that when I turn that on, for God's sake.
A quick pull up a sandbag story early in the day for this, but I was talking to a friend who's a teacher friend of mine, another teacher working at whatever. But when we're at school, you know that magnesium ribbon stuff. Science class, cut a little bit, put it in the Bunsen burner. My mate Matthew, who's now an airline pilot, took the Bunsen burner, put it in the jar. It was like there was a star in the corner of the classroom. it was health and safety. Fantastic, that was. But anyway, right, I don't. So Kiosk Print saying we can get. Let's put this one up. We can get from A to B and up to Z. We cannot get the last 2 to 3 feet safety to the ground. Well, you can always get to the ground safely. Is another issue. Getting to the ground's not hard. LiDAR vision on aircraft. Yeah. I think we're very, very quickly moving to the world where everything could be vision based. In a lot of, I think it will for the landing part.
Except at night.
There's two.
Except at night.
Yeah, there's two sensors that need to go. You know, we're still very much building aircraft off two problematic sensors, the Barrow and the Compass, and we've managed to get very far with them, but they are both extremely unreliable at either low level or anything that smells out the ordinary for the Compass sensor. And there's so much work going on with vision right now. And as Bruce said, night is the problem, but that's where LiDAR can help. Whether optical is not the solution, but LiDAR can kick in at that point, or radar. But there are lots of options coming along, aren't there?
Here's the kicker, I think. I do think at times people overthink it. Flying at night, how many aircraft do you think are now below 400 feet right now?
Oh yes, you suddenly make your life a lot better if you're delivering stuff. You instantly remove stuff from the sky.
There's nothing out there. The only thing you stand a chance of meeting out there right now in the UK is an air ambulance. That's
For a
the
bit.
only thing you stand, or maybe police. They're the only two things you really stand a chance of meeting. There's the odd road drone, but if you can see them and where they are, it's not. It's easy to track them. They can all be tracked now. I could literally go flying and I could chuck this thing that's down by my foot, something rather large. It could go 80k and come back. The only thing that stops it is regulation. And it could be safely. And this thing could go and do its thing quite safely. Do I need to know LiDAR for the ground? Well, I can put a rangefinder on it, so it's always staying at 400 feet if I want to. I'm not worried about.
I completely agree. The blocker at the moment, the innovation that's going to happen is basically working your way around the regulations.
Yeah.
Doing a medical drone delivery, like I could have probably done that about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Getting something from point A to point B from a technological level, just go and buy yourself an ArduPilot and change a few of the parameters on it, and it would basically do it for you. Buy yourself a drone off the shelf. Like the technology isn't the issue. It's the how do I ensure that I'm not going to come across an aircraft? And we don't yet have that data. The regulators, I can understand from their perspective, because who wants to be that person who says, yeah, go for it, and then it does crash into an air ambulance and you end up killing some people, and then there's all of this huge inquiry. You only have to look at what happened at Gatwick when there was a drone that was seen near an airport. Imagine if it actually crashed into a helicopter and killed someone. It would just be a nightmare. So they're going to be, until they're 99.9999% sure that it's going to be safe, they're not going to allow
it. Here's where it becomes the big problem, though, because to date, I've not seen any drone actually take out an aircraft and kill anyone. I've seen it, plenty of news stories where manned aviation, mid-air. Okay, I've seen plenty of that. I've seen plenty of horror stories, but I've not seen the story yet. And it will be a sad day because it will happen. It's inevitable.
So what we should do is not say,
go back
don't,
all the years
just set a level. What's an acceptable amount of death? 5 a year? Then we just work under those parameters. That's fine.
Well, there's 3 ways you can currently fly beyond visual line of sight. The first is if you fly in airspace where you would never come across an aircraft. And there's 2 ways you can do that. You can either fly really low or close to structures, or you can fly within segregated airspace. Now there is a 3rd way that you can do it, which is to fly in airspace where everything can be seen. Or you can ensure that you can see everything. There's 2 ways you could do that. You could either have a certified detect and avoid system, which doesn't yet exist, or you can fly in airspace where everything has to be cooperative. And
we have a certified detect and avoid system here, certified in South Africa, out to you can fly out to 15 kilometers with it just by fitting it. That Cassia thing, I'll try and remember the proper name. Continue while I try and remember the proper name of it. But our aviation authority has approved it, certified it for that.
Yeah. Well, I think I've not seen it personally, but the standards for certification in the UK are pretty hard. So it may be that it doesn't meet the same standards, but they're the 3 ways: fly low or close to objects, fly in segregated airspace, or fly in an area where you have to carry a transponder. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's 3 ways you can do drone deliveries at the moment. So let's exploit those. Let's see which way is the, let's gather some data on those kind of current available means to do it. And then we can go to that next stage and say, okay, well, let's change the regulation to take us a little bit further. So Yeah, I don't blame the CAA for taking this kind of evidence-based approach. You know, there is opportunities to do this stuff now. You just have to operate within those 3 areas. And you're starting to see companies. I do consultancy for about 4. I'm working with 4 companies at the moment doing beyond visual line of sight operations. So it is possible. You know, it's definitely possible. I can assure you to do it. You're just constrained, and so you know they're going to give you a little bit more leeway, a little bit more leeway, a little bit more leeway, and then suddenly the dam's going to break and things are going to go berserk. But what they don't want to do is to allow things to go berserk before they've kind of got some data back and understood what the implications could be. Because if they suddenly say, okay, yeah, you can just do BV loss anywhere, like, you know, there are going to be implications, and we don't yet know what those are.
It's interesting though. In Canada, you can fly BV loss with sub 250, and you can manage the risk by making sure that if worst happens and there's a collision, the likelihood of injury or loss of life is minimal. And that means reducing the risk profile of the crafts you're flying. And in Canada, you can fly sub 250 as far as it'll fly. And some of these little sub 250s now, they're in like 20, 30, 40 minutes out of them with a multi-rotor. So you could fly easily, 15 kilometers away, and it's all totally legal and no one's died. So doesn't that kind of set the benchmark and say, well, that's another way. If you can manage the risk by reducing the danger that the craft itself poses in the event of a collision, that's one way of allowing BV loss operations. Not good for carrying payloads, but good for things like just surveillance at a distance or whatever you might want to do. Who knows?
I think you've got a good point there, Bruce, for sure. Like, I think very, very small aircraft is the way to break through the regulations. And everyone I've seen out there at the moment is doing very, very big ones. So I think there is an opportunity for a very small aircraft flying, box to box to be able to take up that space in the market. But I'll shut up now.
Yeah, because then if we get say 100,000 hours of sub 250 BV loss with no collisions, no incidents, then a larger craft. Well, why would the risk profile be different in terms of the number of collisions? Because they're easier to see, easier to avoid, and the fact that you've been able to fly those hours without any kind of collision proves that the likelihood of a bad thing happening is very low. You've analysed, you've established the risk profile through practical experience. You've got data to work from.
Well, in one of your recent videos, Bruce, you demonstrated that pilots could in fact see a drone on the ground and then climb away from the airfield and make sure that they escape the danger. But that airframe that climbed away, wasn't that the famous one? Wasn't that the one that Matey had?
Yeah, it did look like a Foxbat, didn't it?
It was the same registration. It was the same one.
Was it?
Sure
oh, okay. Could have been.
Yeah. I went to check, but then I got bored. But I think it was the same one. And so that one's got form with running away from. If you haven't seen that, that was in the Jets video, wasn't it, Bruce? I think. Yeah. And why was he running through there when there was a jet event going on? That's what I had to wonder.
Well, there was a NOTAM out saying model jets to be flying to 1,000 feet. And you would think that normally, well, okay, if we're going to go and do some touch and goes at an airfield for 3/4 of an hour, let's choose one where there's not an event on. But no, they came and did it at the airfield. It wasn't until we got the danger drone out that they went away. It was like, seriously, there's people lined up here wanting to fly, and you're the reason that they're not flying. Can't you work that out? So they were very lucky they didn't get a big jet up their backside.
Yeah, absolutely. But James is to come back to James's point. So I distracted us there a little bit, and your point as well. To get those, just to get thousands of hours of something small happening. But I think we can start saying you could not quite equivalent, because of course it's in Africa where there's a lot less manned aircraft. But there is no detect, sense, avoid, no UTM, no corridors, nothing really for the zipline stuff. But they're doing hundreds of flights a month now with large platforms with a pretty large payloads, and they're not hitting stuff and they're not falling out the sky regularly, etc., etc., etc. So they're beginning to generate quite a bit of data. There's a lot of data points.
That's the analysis that the George Mason University did when they did their risk assessment. They looked at the volume of airspace. They looked at the amount of manned aviation movements. They looked at the number of unmanned aircraft movements. They compared that to the strike figures for birds, and they got this once in 400 years there will be a collision that'll produce an injury or a death. And so just purely by the numbers, the sky is a very big place and it's three-dimensional, and our drones are very small. The manned aircraft even are comparatively small. So the odds of both trying to occupy the same piece of airspace at exactly the same time are incredibly low, just on a statistical basis. And when you bear in mind that most drone operators are trying to avoid manned aircraft and vice versa, that lowers the risks even further, because we know airline pilots can see tiny drones from thousands of miles away, and men in jetpacks.
Yes.
So, yeah. And they could never be wrong. So, we've got these wonderful people piloting these manned aircraft who can immediately take evasive action and be just feet from the craft. It's always just feet from the craft, even though they saw them 1,000 meters away.
I think the difficulty is with, a regulator giving approval beyond visual line of sight is it's not a linear equation. It's kind of an iterative equation. It's like as soon as you go and give someone the ability to fly beyond visual line of sight, then suddenly the amount of air traffic that's out there is going to be substantially greater, which is then going to affect the risk. So you then end up going around in circles. Is the more people you give approval to, the greater the risk becomes. And so therefore, should you be giving approval to people, because now the risk is a lot greater of a potential collision. So
we don't have millions of people lining up to fly drones. We're talking about tiny, tiny numbers. There are so many more birds out there than drones. If you said BVLOS is available, it would be a few thousand extra flights a day. I don't know. It's not much. It's a tiny little amount compared to the number of sparrows and starlings that are fluttering around my roof. That's the whole thing. And also, don't forget that hobbyists have been flying BVLOS for over a decade. Over a decade flying BVLOS model aircraft. No one's ever had an incident. So we've already established that this is really, really safe. And the only reason that people are not allowing it to happen, or regulators are not allowing it to happen, is they don't understand, or they're not prepared to accept the hard evidence that we've got that proves the risk is really low. It's far more risk of two manned aircraft colliding in the skies over our heads than an FPV or a BVLOS drone colliding with anything.
Michael makes a great point there about ribbon cutting. If you've ever tried to ribbon chase another model aeroplane and cut the ribbon, it's really hard, or done some slope combat.
It's easier just to smash straight into them. That's the best one.
Yeah, it is. Or even the beer can skills on the slope. That's quite hard as well. But of course, no one would drink beer and fly a model aircraft. That obviously nobody would do that.
I think the scenario which regulators are scared of is, there was an accident on the M5 or something, and an air ambulance needs to go in to go and save someone. But we now live in a world where drones are flying everywhere because there's all of these drone deliveries going on. There's survey drones doing beyond visual line of sight surveys. As soon as that helicopter comes down below sort of 600 feet, that pilot is going to be crapping themselves, to put it politely.
That's just an easy one. That's just that helicopter by nature of its work will be fully equipped with whatever the latest devices are, and probably will have multiple conspicuity and radio frequencies that it can use, and that will be pulled into a UTM, Altitude Angel, for instance. And because you're flying commercially, you will have that. You will have to have that live on whatever device you have, whatever it is, and that will just say, "Hey, there's a helicopter coming." Surely that's an easy use case.
And let's not forget that the risk is still very low. Remember, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police flew their great big drone into their own helicopter. It didn't crash. And the other thing is that as soon as you go below 400 feet, the bird strike risk goes up enormously. And there are plenty of instances of helicopters striking birds with rotors and things and tail rotors. It is a risk that is part of the job. If you're going to fly anything below 400 feet, forget about drones. There are trees, there are wires, there are people with shotguns. There's so many risks down at that level that it's just part of the game.
And you have to remember that, like everyone has said, if you're flying commercially, and we've all got the electronic conspicuity and everything, or conspicuity, we're all going to be seeing everything that's going on. And don't forget that every weekend, I should think, the hobbyists go out. These guys generally don't care. They're doing 10 kilometers, even in the UK. I've seen the videos on YouTube, so don't say it doesn't happen here. None of those aircraft have hit another manned aircraft. Otherwise, it'd be all over the news. So, it's...
So do you guys have to? Are you mandated to have an airband radio with you when you fly commercially over there? Oh, we are here. We have to have radio, and we give occasional radio calls, as you would as just flying in the open FIR, occasional radio calls of what you're doing, and of course you're then listening for VHF traffic. You're not hearing military traffic coming, of course, which you have more of a problem with over there. But again, you have a responsibility to be aware of the airspace in which you're flying. You're a user with other users, and you should be aware that you're in that LFA or not far away from it, a choke point, a flow arrow, or something like that. You should be aware of that, and that's a training thing. I think it'll fizzle out to turn into make sure people have the appropriate training to know the airspace, and there's no problem. That's what I think it will fizzle out to. What were we all worried about?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think the only hold up in most of this is the regulator, manned aviation, because I think a lot of drone people go, right, you want us to put a remote ID or electronic conspicuousy? If we can go BV loss, everyone would just do it. You know, the drone guys would take it straight away. Manned aviation, though, you say, put this electronic conspicuousy on your aircraft, manned aviation will absolutely tell you what to do because they've already done it as well.
But don't forget, the regulator has been mandating very expensive ancient equipment, ADS-B, as being what they need, and the UK, all power to them, have seen the light and are moving into allowing lower cost, more sensible systems to be used in your manned aircraft. And it does come to the point where there's no excuse. It can create problems. The gliding world has problems whereby folks all congregate on a strong thermal because they can see the other aircraft in the thermal, and they're starting having air prox reports of gliders converging on thermals. So it's not without its issues, but it's a few years ago it would have been harder because it would have been larger and more expensive for us and for everybody else. Now it's throwaway cheap. No reason not to have it. Improves safety. Hashtag gets the banner up there. At the end of the day, general aviation, what should you do? Well, what did I do with that one? There it is there. Let's just no GA below 2K. Just don't come down. We're making it safe for you. And that's what those mandated ADS-B areas, some of them will work out as being not below 2,500 feet. Stay away. Something like that. I can see that coming.
The city.
Yeah, the problem you've got there though is that, like, you know, if a GA has an engine failure for any reason, then
that's fine.
You know what's going to happen.
That's no problem.
Well, he's
probably going to kill themselves when they hit the ground anyway. So what's the point in worrying about drones?
Mayday. This is whatever. I am wherever. I am going to the field here, Mr. Air Traffic Controller. Right. Okay. I'll just make sure I've alerted everybody, and part of that alert is it goes into the UTM, and that will flag up as an aircraft in an emergency 5 miles south of wherever, aiming for wherever, because that aircraft was high when you had that engine failure. You had plenty of time to talk to me, so he could give me all the information while he's gliding downhill instead of tooling around at 200 feet when he was just going to come straight into the terrain when it happens. I don't think it's such a big problem as you're worrying about, James.
No, I get you. It's just those systems don't yet exist. So, you know,
hang on. Let's make it easier. Can I put him up there? There you are. Can you get it in better now? Oh, who did you want to get at? You didn't want to get at him. Hang on. I don't know what he's doing. Here's another. This is
he's trying to set his life off so he feels at home.
That's another bush.
They were there. Fire!
I've forgotten I had those tickers. I'd forgotten I set those up. Ball and shoot, yeah.
And with drone delivery, remember that over cities in the UK, planes fly higher, and they do around the world. So if they do have an engine failure, they have to be able to glide to safety. So actually, city delivery point to point makes perfect sense. I don't think delivery to houses makes any sense in the UK.
So what's going to happen with these flying cars? How are they going to glide to safety?
Parachute.
Well, yeah, but you can't use a parachute, can you, in an aircraft of that size? Because you'll end up with something dragging. Because then you'll end up with wind constraints. Did you see in Ireland that bloke? He said there's going to be 10,000 of their units flying over Ireland into cities, and they can fly 95% of the weather. I'm not actually allowed to say. There's an interesting study coming out about weather, and he gave a brilliant and drone weather and what potentially how that makes certain areas flyable or not. And it's very, very interesting. And I've said too much already, but he's crazy because he said we have to fly 95% of the time in the Irish weather. It's like, what? Really? 95%? I mean, could you?
It's not going to happen. Let's be honest.
But it's an interesting problem, isn't it? Put a number on how percentage-wise how flyable the weather is in your location, and then define flying, isn't it? If it's getting safely to the ground or in bits to the ground or delivering, then it's your wind speed for delivery in the street, at the house, and then So it's not really been spoken about. There's a study coming out about that, which I'm involved in. So it'll be very interested to see how that all plays out, really, and see what the industry thinks, because it blows away a lot of the VC forecasts and stuff when you start putting that factor in. It's like, well, how's that going to work then? Anyway, I've said too much.
Well, over here, I reckon there's about 100 days. There's 150 days you might not fly. So let's say it's 200 flyable days in the UK. Anyone that gets into the drone business in the UK, you've got 200 good weather days. And that includes weekends. The rest of it, it's either raining, windy, or it's just too damn cold to go out and fly. You've only got 200 days to make your money if you're a drone pilot in the UK. So, having...
You don't get 200 days in Wales
less than us.
Or Ireland.
You get less than us. So, depending where you are, and Scotland gets even less. Scotland, Wales, you just, flying in outrageous weather. I mean, I have been out. We have flown a monster machine, and we flew it. I think it was gusting 45 multi-rotor, and it did sit there and take the abuse that it was like, okay, I can do this. Give me some more. And we're thinking, oh, okay. But when you're flying in high winds, it's no fun. It's not enjoyable, and not recommended.
Well, then it's also what are the so I'm glad you're going to regret me finding those tickers again, because FX mentioned the Bruce Jones there, it's who has actually proved the manufacturer's figures as well, and what gust loading and all that sort of thing. It's an interesting topic in our world. What else? I know what I was going to say about the BV loss thing. I guarantee there is not a commercial company in the UK that hasn't flown BV loss to get a job done. I guarantee it. If you say every single company in the UK has, and in fact around the world, I'm not going to just say the UK, I'm going to say around the world, I guarantee there's not a commercial.
Karen.
Oh,
where's Karen?
I have to say, I have never flown a BV loss in the UK.
Yeah, I bet. Well, in that case, you're only playing.
I can't possibly comment about this at all. Yet there isn't a video on my channel about me losing a Phantom at 1.2 kilometers at all. But I can't comment on this.
I'm just going to say I'm not in the UK.
Nor am I.
Oh, you're kind of you're getting divided there anyway, aren't you, at the moment? Anyway. What else?
I used to fly Falcon 8s, and you'd be lucky if you could get beyond about 300 meters before it do a return to home. So,
anyway, exactly.
Well, Unique had that issue.
And you only had 7-minute flight time.
Oh, 7. I was going to say 8. So there you are.
Yeah, the Falcon 8s, I've never had the pleasure of flying one. I've seen them up close. I've talked to people about them. And the stories are, it's a great aircraft, but it doesn't fly very far, and it doesn't have any battery life.
I know a story about them. How many were actually sold pre-Intel days?
327.
Close. A little bit too high.
Oh, 301.
Still a little bit too high.
4.
200. It was 200. That's all there was. There was 200 in the world. Hang on. Has Louis been waiting there a while? Hello, Louis. Where are you? He's still in Brazil?
Yeah.
Are you just back from the beach? Just back from the beach?
No, no beach today. Only paperwork.
Have you managed to fly yet?
No.
What's it? We've been there 2 weeks now, haven't you?
Don't ask me. Don't ask me. I'm not counting the days.
Well, that's just as well then, isn't it? Because that would be very disappointing. Now, what's Ian doing? So where everyone wishes we could sort of move these cameras around so we could see what he was looking for on the shelf. Yeah, make a remote camera.
The problems of using Max is trying to find a bloody USB-C adapter.
Yeah, it was
Shut in, Louis,
on the
before you
floor.
say anything.
It's good when he got up and he deliberately turned the chair so we could see the name. That was very slick, wasn't it?
I should have gone to that view so you could see from that view there, but no. I've gone to that one now. That was the best view. No, that's here one. That is. I'm just trying to get the rover working.
Finally!
Yes,
finally some videos on that. Oh, finally!
Yeah, look at I've got to set up you like this. I can blind myself. I'm actually trying it with Mission Planner. See, look, Mission Planner on Android. If people haven't seen Mission Planner on Android, look at that.
Yes, I must try that actually.
Can you see anything on that? I tried it for 2 minutes. I cannot.
Yeah, it's not the ideal user experience, let's be honest, but because it's the same old UI. What made me laugh was, and I did send this to Michael, was if you click a certain box, you get an error box come up, but it is the Windows error box that comes up, and it's just quite funny to get it because you're on Android and you're like, how is that window even possible? That doesn't exist on this machine.
Someone stole my wheels off my buggy. Anyone seen them?
Oh yes. Oh, you've also got a rover. What sort of rover is that?
It's just a me messing about, experimenting buggy, and I've even got a little sensor because I want to try the anti-collision. So I've got a little TF Mini lidar.
I see. You
That's
can
already
the Matic lock to it.
TF Mini in the front, Mark. Look. Already
very nice. Yeah. So your book is a lot bigger and better than mine.
It weighs a ton.
I want mine to pull a ton.
There will be some content on this shortly, Gary, because you've been whinging at me.
But yeah, I need Ian. How did you convert?
That's my latest new one. The sizes and everything, is it? It already size everything. I don't know.
Ian,
I have a lot of.
Sorry, we're going to. Ian, technical question. How did you how did you modify this to go into the pics?
You just got to solder wire on it. That's the only way. Cut the end off, put a UART connector on. But just be careful, is your mon in I2C mode or UART? They normally come shipped in I2C mode out the box, and it's a complete pig to change. I can't remember. You can use it on I2C, though. But there's something that doesn't work on I2C, and I can't remember what it is. Let me check and I'll email you.
Gary, I'm kind of like somewhat surprised that you haven't been, glorifying how well the new drone registration system has been going for the CAA in recent weeks.
Oh, what with the lack of a place to renew and things like that? Is that where you were taking that?
No, I heard through the grapevine. I heard it's been going fantastically well, and there's been absolutely zero issues whatsoever.
There hasn't been a problem because you can't do it. It's
nice exactly. You can't do it. It's not a problem, is it?
It's nothing wrong with it. You just can't do it. You know, it's fine. You people, you're always whinging about stuff. You want it working. You didn't pay to have it working. We need £4.5 million to get it working. We only got about
another 4.5.
We only got about 1 million in registration fees to get it up and running. So sorry, maybe in 3 or 4 years.
Do you think
Maybe they're upgrading to a Raspberry Pi 4?
Yeah, the new board.
Or the new board today, the new the new
A compute board,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah.
So
do
you
you
are
think
one.
do you think the CA run out of lines on their Excel spreadsheet?
Excel, exactly. Well, but you
check
could.
the system works. That's what I want to know. Oh man, oh, you should have seen their face though, James, because the people that invented it, or sorry, the people that made it, were there when I got to in one of the RAE meetings, and I went, "How can you justify this being 2.3 million? This system?" You should have seen everyone's face. They weren't expecting that question, you know, from an RAE straight at them. It's like, how can you justify this being 2.3? You're taking somewhat. They didn't like the question.
Consultancy fees. It's easy. You know, it's at least £3 million in consultancy fees.
What was the spreadsheet ones, Ken?
It wasn't the consultancy fees at all that screwed them over. It was the fact.
Let me ask a question to the expert on rovers. Can I, Ian?
Sorry, expert.
He's not here. Yes, there's a bit of a mistake here, isn't it?
You can ask me a question.
You're on the wrong stream, Louis.
You can ask me a question, but I'm not sure what answer you'll get. But let's go for it.
Can you build a rover using stepper motors?
Used to be able to, long time ago.
Well, yeah,
In the 80s.
There's no reason you can't. Yeah, there's no reason you can't do it. I don't know. You'd need a controller to do it through steppers, and it's not going to be very quick. But yeah, technically,
Can you do odometry using the stepper motors rotations?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, you will be able to with steps because you know where it is. Yeah, exactly. You know, there's no reason.
Mark is showing something.
Mecam wheels.
Yes. Well, DJI are using. Well, they're not using steppers, but they're using things on theirs on the Robo Master. They've got the Mecams. It's freaky. It's just amazing. It just goes sideways and forwards, and it's unbelievable how it moves.
You can buy forklift trucks with it now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The problem with all those wheels is that if you have one small bump on the pavement, that's the end of it.
Yeah. It is.
Come on, Mark. Come on, Mark. You're going to comment something about the small bump on the tarmac.
But then you must have had that, the number of skateboard incidents, accidents, and offs I had where it would have been a little bit of grit in the road where you're going down the hill and then boom, off you go.
Gary's got a robotics channel. Have you got a robotics channel, Gary?
Yeah.
I've missed this.
No, it's not from. It's just coderobots.org. It was just in the lockdown it's free robot resources for children in lockdown.
Well, I'm a child, so I'd have learned something.
No, you wouldn't.
No,
but
on building one rover, but the profile I'm looking is more of those that are a bit on fashion now. It's a crawler. So it has big wheels, big displacement of suspension, so it can go slowly. What's that? Is that a sexual?
I'll make block one.
Mark? No tracks. It has to be wheels.
Have you seen the one I really like? And Michael's making, you need wheel encoders for accuracy and things like that. If using steers, have you seen that one on the? I can't remember what it's called. It's just two wheels and it can jump over curbs and things like that. It's a very cool little delivery thing.
Be reasonable. If it's going to drive inside the tunnel, jumping.
And that was going to be the most important bit. Jumping, what? You cut out, you said jumping.
Inside the tunnel, jumping might not be a good idea.
No, it might not. That's very true. But you don't need to be all that clever. So you just need to know how far down the tunnel you are because it's a GPS denied environment.
Yes.
Yeah, let's not steppers. Well, she said stepper motors. I thought, oh, let's just break into a fruit machine. They use stepper motors. Just get the stepper motors out of a fruit machine. That's what I'd do.
There's loads of buggies on Banggood. Loads of buggies on
Come
Banggood.
on. You buy the stepper motors off a 3D printer,
Oh yes,
And-
of course.
and they're dirt cheap.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you. But there's plenty of pipe inspection robots out there already, isn't there? I mean, you just copy one of those.
Roger
Yeah,
Wright
subs
used the
is where
drone.
For what I
Used the
want.
drone to inspect a pipe, didn't they? That was a bit
They did.
I want to do a sub. Sub is the next one. I really want to do a sub. It's quite expensive,
I
unfortunately.
think we might have to. The Michael Boland there in Australia. He's getting ready for a ban actually. Tape measure, tail to. So he's smacking of common sense there. So Michael, as you know, common sense isn't allowed on this channel. Yes, exactly. Tape measure, yeah, a bit of string, measured bit of string. How on earth are we going to make the rendering for the so there we are. That's it. Yes, 65 Australian dollars. What, a meter, an inch, or a centimeter for that tape? We've got to price it properly. Yeah, how are we going to make the VC rendering for that? Yeah, no, there must be plenty of things you can copy out there.
I got late. Has Ian been selling the L1 and the P1?
No,
Did you sell
you're
already the
muted.
L1 and P1? Ian?
The L1.
L1 and P1, the new gimbals for.
Oh, I haven't had my the DJI ones you're on about.
Ian,
No. Sorry, the M100, the M300 series cameras. Yeah, like I'm going to get my hands on one of them. I think the price of the L1 was around $80,000, which is what I heard, 50 to 80,000, wouldn't it, Louis? Yeah, something like that. And the P1 is a very nice bit of kit actually, and there was a lot of. DJI haven't had a proper camera for their M200 series or 300, their Matrice series of aircraft for inspection for a long time because none of them were global shutter. None of them had a mechanical shutter. And they converted the X7, but it was a cine camera. It was a terrible mapping camera. But this is quite a nice bit of kit if you've got that money, if you're allowed to fly it where you need to do that mapping. And that's the biggest problem now. You know, and although we say this, and is this blue UAS thing really having any real world impact right now? Because I'm not seeing commercial operators screaming, I can't do any work in the US on all of the groups.
I've seen it, sorry.
You have?
Yeah, if you have operations on federal land, on US, then you cannot use DJI. Period.
You can't do bridge inspections with DJI in the whole of the US now.
But
they're federal.
But is it really happening? That's the question. You know, we have a piece of paper.
It's happening. And I like that American motto that says no ifs, ands, or buts. So no excuses. So just you have to comply, or then you're out. And I've seen it already.
Yeah, I think what hasn't happened is the realization. I think people quickly put it in their heads. They just connected it with, oh, okay, the military aren't going to be flying DJI. That's what's gone into people's heads. What hasn't got into their heads is you can't fly over federal land, buildings, or critical infrastructure that are connected with that. And that's a big part of the inspection industry, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's large.
Yeah, so I think that's finally coming home. But then the question is, how many of those actual blue SUAS, thanks American government, SUAS suppliers actually have the size and ability to service the offering? You know.
Well, how many of these are even available? Can anyone actually buy any of these aircraft? That
Yeah,
is,
you can buy the parrots. You can buy the parrots.
You can buy the
easily.
parrot.
Yeah, you can buy the parrots. I don't think you can easily buy any of the others easily. So yeah, we shall see what's we won't. Now Andrew's got an interesting one there. Heard from the BMFA that CAA tried to charge 10k to the BMFA to create the upgrade functionality. Why don't I just put it up? And the BMFA said, get stuffed. So there we are. Well done, the BMFA. Yeah, you'd still think there's some change out of the original 2.8 million or whatever it was, wouldn't you, to provide that button functionality?
Yeah, you would think there'd be enough money to get a web developer just to go through.
Yeah.
It is interesting, this whole Blue UAS thing, because I can't decide if it's all a massive marketing trick for the most part, for a big front to say, look at us, we're as good as China. Okay, let's put it out there. It's about US v China, and it's more noise than substance, because there's an awful lot of noise around this from all companies involved, isn't there?
Well, I think it's fair to say it happened. The trial happened. There was a specification that happened. Some were chosen. What's a little bit unfair is, will they make this a biannual competition every 10 years or whatever? Because at the moment, those 5 platforms, that's it. Having made in USA on your machines, completely meaningless if it's not one of the Blue SUAS. It's completely meaningless being made or manufactured in the USA or some other friendly country. It has to be one of the 5.
Yeah, but there's something interesting about that. You say that the Alta, not the Alta, sorry, the no, what's it called? The one from Free Fly, the Nova. Is it the Nova?
Yeah, it's not a Blue UAS.
But they've said it is. But they've said it is.
It's not.
Today, they put a tweet out 2 days ago that it can be used for all critical infrastructure and all government contracts.
No, it can't. It's not.
See, this is the thing, isn't it? It's interesting because they're out.
One of the 5. Yeah.
Let me just find the post. I'll find it now on Twitter because they put it out. It was shared by Arterian, is who it was shared by.
We'll never let the truth get in the way of a good story, eh?
What are people's thoughts on the that new L1 and P1 payload?
He just woke up.
M300.
There's an echo in here. There's an echo.
Sorry, James. It's very nice.
What believe they're about $80,000.
What are you talking about?
I think it's about $80,000. Yeah. 80 grand for the L1.
80 grand?
80 grand for the L1.
For the L1?
P1, very nice big camera.
Jesus
First
Christ.
proper mapping camera for the Matrice 300 series. However, are you going to be actually allowed to use it anyway? For the LiDAR.
80 grand. Like, see, I was hearing numbers of around about 15 grand people putting out.
That's what you've got to put in the guy's pocket to talk
that
to
would have been a game changer.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I want to see this tweet now because I want to see the wording. I want to.
I'm finding it now. 2 seconds. Let me just find it.
Because you can, of course, you can use it for those critical infrastructure. But if you're not on that Blue, let's get the official list up. If you're not on that list, you're not coming in.
You're not coming in.
So why is this Blue Skydio black, but the black one is
always one?
Why did they do that?
That is a fantastic question. That is a fantastic question, though. Why is your blue UAS black and your black and your normal black UAS blue?
Let me see. Where's the actual list? I'm looking for the actual list of the actual ones now. Solutions. Yep. It's not solutions.
Let me just find this.
I'm looking for the actual ones. Everyone, just do something else while we do these boring things. Both of us are now doing boring things. So, did that hawk in your video, your first video you had, Bruce? That hawk had a wheels problem. Where was that in the last video?
Well, no, it was just that the cover wasn't retracting fully. There was nothing major. It was just flew around with that down for a while, and then I think he rewound the rubber band, and it was all good.
That's good. And my word, and no pilots in model airplanes. What do we think about that? Other than, of course, there aren't pilots.
It's
in model
crazy when you go to all that trouble, no pilots. It looks silly, but well, they're unmanned aerial vehicles, I suppose. So you've got to have a pilot in them, otherwise that would really confuse the CAA.
Absolutely. But it does look silly. And why are they not? Because the landing speeds are huge. Are they just too small for what they are?
Well, the landing speeds are pretty good actually, but I mean they are heavily loaded wings, so you do get high rate of sink if you're not careful. But doesn't the new camera work well? It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very nice.
I haven't seen this one. Which one was this, Bruce? I haven't seen this one yet.
That's the jet video I put up last.
I did get the pop up for it. Funny enough, I've just been tied to my loft.
And you didn't watch it, man. As soon as I get advice of yours, I race straight over and leave rude comments.
I've noticed. No,
the down button, you know.
No. Oh, you're the one person that does it.
Flag it with
1 minute of the video going up.
Flag it for offensive content. All those things.
All the usual stuff it needs. Yeah. No, I've been working on my loft, unfortunately, so I've not had a chance to look at it, Bruce, but I promise I will watch it before the end. I got 2 of your videos to watch, actually. I got to watch the one on the Radio Master, and I've got to watch the other one as well, so I haven't forgotten.
Well, you'll have 3 soon, so.
Oh. But one of them's on good.
So, and Bruce, how is your getting acquainted with the 2020 style radio, the Radio Master, now that you've dropped your old Tyrannis?
Well, I'm still getting to grips with it. So I'll probably this week I'll start transferring models over and having a good old play with it. But I like it. It's nice. What's he got? It's a Mavic Mini.
It's a Mavic Mini.
Yeah, so I got really excited about a week, just over a week ago. I got really excited because I was going to Gibraltar for a short, a long weekend. And I was like, right, I need a new drone because my Mavic Pro, the gimbal bust. It went and did that like flicky thing, which it does when your gimbal breaks. So I was like, well, I could just mend it, or I could just buy a new drone. So I bought a new drone, and I got really excited until I then checked out all of the air laws in Gibraltar. So if anyone moans about flying in the UK, just try and fly in Gibraltar. I'm not even joking. I had to send about 20 pages worth of documentation as a hobbyist to fly. I had to go and ring up 3 authorities before I could fly, and I had to be supervised by like the Environment Agency of Gibraltar to be able to fly my drone at a specific location. There were 4 locations you could fly. You had to submit a flight plan for your location. I'm like, come on, like literally, and you're not allowed to fly over land. You're only allowed to fly over the sea. So
maybe they've been watching the stream and they know who you are.
What's that?
Maybe they've been watching the stream and they knew who you were.
Exactly. Now, as far as I know, if you're not on this list here, the Alta Iron Ion, the Anafi, the X2, the Golden Eagle, and the Vespa, ding, 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 ding. If you're not on that list, you ain't coming in, and that's it. That's the only approved systems.
There's nothing big there, though, is there? If you look at the aircraft,
they're all
handheld.
That's because of the specification. Here's the specification: 3 kilometer range for 30 minutes, flies through dust, assembly time 2 minutes, less than 3 pound takeoff weight, high resolution payload.
So is that new industrial drone, the one I've seen advertised, where they grabs it, tips it upside down to disable it and carries it off? It's got a handle built into the side and it's got lights and it's fantastic. You seen that video? Yeah, where's that? Why isn't it on here?
It might be made in the USA, but it ain't a Blue SUAS. Those are the only ones, and that's the problem. That is the big problem.
Nothing a can of spray paint won't fix in a trice.
Well, yeah, but when are they going to have the next round of picking the next chosen few?
When they allocate the next set of freers.
Yes,
Yes,
it's the same
the FAA.
situation. Yeah. It's literally is the same. It's smacked of the same thing.
Yeah. So regardless of what anyone else says, if you're not on that list, you ain't one of them, and that's that. That's the bottom line at the moment. And nor may you be. And
So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
problem exactly. Go on.
I wonder if this tweet's been taken down.
I should think it has, because it's not true.
I can't find it.
It's
and
not
I
true.
100% saw it.
Yeah.
Because when I read it, I went, "Hey."
What are the 5 aircraft, Gary?
Sorry?
What 5 aircraft are allowed?
Just bloody shut the window, haven't I? No, hang on. Oh, here we are. I'll get it up again. It is. Are you like 5 minutes behind us?
Yeah, it's not related to James's computer, I guess. Yeah.
Delayed to England. COVID's got into his brain.
Why?
Wi-Fi.
I'm hoping that Parrot are allowed.
I'll put the link in the thing as well. So it's this one, the Ion, from Ultravion, the Anafi, which we know, the X2, the Skydio, which we wonder how many of those are actually in the world. The Golden Eagle from Teal. I had a chat with him. If you look on the channel, there I had a chat with the boss man, and then the Vespa, which I can only ever think of the motorbikes. Let's put this link in the side. So those are the only platforms currently approved, and that's that. No more. And yeah, as I say, it doesn't matter what you say about.
What about if you turn off your data on your phone?
No.
No.
There's no exceptions, and you may continue using your DJI equipment for emergency situations, but you'll need an approval to use it. But you will not receive. And what they've done is they've blocked the funding to the government funding schemes that they have over there. So you won't be able to get government grants to fund the things if you're a police force or whatever, as you were able to before. They're only allowing the funding for the blue SUAS, and that's that. But as we said multiple times now, I think the only company capable of meeting its orders would be Parrot out of that lot, to be quite honest. They're the only one of any size. All the rest are no size at all. Ultravion's like 4 blokes in a garage.
And it's the only one that's not particularly technically complex either. If you look at it, it's very much built off the experience Parrot have from Anafi. There's nothing unrealistic about it. Nothing, that would cause development issues or nothing like that. And we know Parrot are extremely good at delivering a finished product. They have a lot of experience in doing it.
And not only that, you guys probably remember a few weeks ago when Gary did an interview with the creator of JoHub. The ecosystem of apps is developing quite dramatically for the Parrots, because their SDK is quite accessible, and you can develop both for Android and iOS, so you're free to use whatever mobile platform you want. And Gary, let me tell you something. Remember that when we did the demo, I was flying manual, but now the guys from JoHub added a feature which is cable cam. So the pilot flies to one place, the controller on the remote controller marks a spot. Then the pilot flies to another place, remote controller marks another spot, and then you can do cable cam. So the drone flies one place to the other, one place to the other, and you can pause the flight mid-flight. So the guys are also developing. So, and I was speaking with Paulo a couple of days ago, and they having emergency departments interested on using the platform and testing the platform. So good for the third-party apps from for the Anafi.
Yeah, the whole. I think the bottom line with the blue SUS is a genuine thing, but it's just been over leveraged by certain companies now, whilst they have an advantage. And as soon as it needs to have more competition, they need to quickly do it again. They need to make it an annual thing and add another 5 completely different companies if we want to, rather than just pin it down to these guys for now. I don't think that the military unit will have quite foreseen how cavalier, is that a good way? No, how gung-ho some manufacturers would be with their special badge of honor. I don't think they'll. Well, they've done it again.
It's blinding myself as it turns on. Yeah, look, I had a bit of a pop at Skydio on Twitter the other day about some of their tweets, because they're downright childish more than anything for a company of the size they are. Whoever they've got behind the phone, they need to take it off him and give it to the adult in the room, because for a company who has a giant military contract, have a great product, they're playing peeing contest games with DJI, and it just doesn't reflect well on them. And as you say, it's interesting to see how then suddenly 1 or 2 other companies have come out now and said they pretty much have created the UAS, the commercial UAS industry in the US now. And is it good that potentially one company or software platform is behind all of these aircraft, allegedly, or for the most part is supporting them? Is that a good thing in itself? We've talked about Chinese interference. Well, now you've got a monopoly potentially within it.
Can you have a monopoly with open source software?
Well, it's not open though, is it? That's the problem here. This little bit of it isn't quite open, is it?
Well, we're going to step back from the politics now, I think. We all know what we're talking about, but anyway, moving on very quickly. So actually,
I'm going to traditionally come in late here. Which software is this?
Well, yes, it's Altarian. It's the Altarian stuff, which is PX4.
Altarian.
Yeah. It's PX4.
Can you stick in the chat?
James, you've never heard of Altarian? Are you telling me you've never heard of the #1 commercial drone enabler, manufacturer in the industry?
You jumped the fence. You really jumped the fence. You're on the other side. You went for the dark side, Luke.
You're so far across the line, you can't even see the line. Hey, I'm just replying what the marketing information is saying, Louis. Is that not correct? Well, it's caused him to freeze. Are you saying that?
Get off Twitter. Twitter makes.
Get off Twitter. Yeah, I'll give you a clue in there. Here's one post about them. I'll give you. I'm only going to post links from well-known drone news websites. It's this lot. This lot.
There's a spoon in here somewhere.
There's a spoon.
spoon in a jar that's being stirred somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, but every market does it. I think, and Bruce will know better than me. But it's something will be invented, and a little bit down the line, someone will claim to have invented it all, even though it's the work of a lot of other people.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, yeah, they are. That was quick. Yes, of course. Yes, nothing that nobody's never seen before.
So Bruce is still on the run, still escaping authorities.
I've had to move houses, Louis. I've had to actually move houses to keep ahead of CAA and their mob.
Yeah. Well, where are we at? Your story's getting a bit boring now with that, Bruce. It's not coming to head.
Yeah, there's no realistic chance of you getting locked up anymore, and it's a bit boring once it gets to that stage.
Where are we at with that?
I'm going to put some fat on the fire, I think. Yeah, I've invited them. Well, today I sent the letter inviting them to come to Taikara, enjoy the many joys of the airfield and have a fly of a drone and a model aircraft and things. And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. But I'll be publishing that letter later today in the video. And then we'll just sit back and wait and see what happens. But they've gone very, very quiet. Oh, I did get a response to my privacy complaint, not from the Privacy Commissioner, but from them. And they said there was no breach of privacy because that's the address we had for you. Okay, that's what they say. That's what the legal team said. We didn't breach your privacy because we had that address on file. I don't think that exonerates you from actually checking that your data is valid, but hey-ho. But given that the Privacy Commissioner has no teeth, cannot impose any fines or sanctions whatsoever on a government department, it makes no point, filing a privacy complaint with the official ombudsman because he can't do a damn thing. So why are we funding an organisation that can do nothing? It's an exercise in futility.
So it's the toothless tiger, not like GDPR rules here in Europe.
Yeah, although I was talking to someone that works at the Privacy Commission because I know them independently, and they said, oh no, our privacy laws are in alignment with the GDPR. And I'm thinking, how does that work?
No, they're not.
Can't be.
Although granted that government departments have some special provisions under the GDPR laws. So might not be, if it's a private company, yes, the fines can be daunting. But if it's a government department, usually it's just a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy though, because here in New Zealand, I think it was the Navy got a fine of $300,000 from health and safety because someone drowned during an exercise. So they fined the Navy $300,000. What is the point? Because where does the Navy get its money from? The taxpayer. So what you're doing is saying, well, we're going to take the money we've already given you and put it back in the pool and give it back to you later. It's like it's all an exercise in shuffling paperwork and giving bureaucrats something to do. You can't fine a government department in any effective way. You've got to find people. It should be people, the individuals. Decisions don't make themselves. Policies don't write themselves. The people responsible for doing that, who get paid handsomely for coming up with these policies and for implementing them, when they make a wrong decision, they personally should be liable. That's what happens if you're in private industry. If you're in private industry and you make a wrong decision, you personally end up carrying the can.
That's why you have professional insurances on certain levels of an organization. And I don't think that public servants have those escape routes of having insurances due to malpractice.
The thing in New Zealand is that our health and safety laws have a criminal component, so you can't opt out of it and you can be criminally liable. It's not like just a fine, it's that you could go to jail. But they don't do that with their own, it's like, do as we say, not as we do. Our own government agencies are exempted from that. We're not going to put any of our employees in jail, but if you as a private individual or as a private company do something, we can take your managing director or your health and safety officer and jail him because he has not done his job properly. So there's two sets of rules, as is always the case.
Come on, Bruce, we've all seen The Hobbit, putting all those small children to work. That's a health and safety violation of the previous. That's why they did The Hobbit in New Zealand.
But that's just human rights, isn't it, rather than health and safety. Then health and safety. Oh no, managed to make him freeze. So will Gordon be giving the tour to the CAA and the flight demonstrations by Gordon when they arrive?
I think Gordon will show the hobby at its finest, and I'll ask the CAA to bring their own bags, not for donuts and things, but just for the wreckage. It'll be great. But I think the four-wheel undercarriage could do with a bit of work. It wasn't really the best solution to the problem.
Yeah, very much. No, I enjoyed those. You had a couple of good videos, the last ones.
Quick question, Bruce. What was that Stork that was we saw in one of your videos? Is it a rebuild or a kit plane?
It's a 3/4 scale, and I think it's I can't remember the name of it, but it is a kit that's manufactured by someone in the USA or Poland. I can't remember where, but it is a 3/4 replica, and it's got an O320 or O360 in it, so it doesn't have an inverted V8 or V10 or whatever they had. But it's a really nice and interesting, something different kind of a plane. So many people complained about the swastika on the tail. Oh no, seriously. What's wrong? In a historical context, there's no problem with that. But some people like to get their knickers in a twist every time they see something like that.
Mm. And so no new aircraft for DJI in 2020 then. That's that Phantom 5, that ship, she has sailed.
No, I think there'll be one. I think the Mavic Mini will get an upgrade. I think that's going to happen. And actually, if you look at what came today, what came today lays the ground for that. If you look at the new OM4 or OP4, the Osmo Pocket 4, 48 megapixel, using the same sensor as the DJI, Autel used on the Evo.
So it's 6K then.
Whichever one they'll 6K, not 8K. Yeah, all of that nonsense, quad Bayer. You'll see an upgrade to that, but but you should say they are predictably unpredictable as well. So you never actually know what's around the corner. There's so much so unpredictable. What I was expecting to turn up didn't. That's how unpredictable they can be.
So rumors of the DJI Blue are not true?
That's
they had
something we need to do.
They had the chance. I think if they'd done it 2 years ago and they'd have opened a manufacturing in the US, they could have had a good hold on this, but they didn't do it.
I think in the end, it is good for the market, this Blue initiative.
Yes.
Because it takes people were not satisfied with DJI eating up 70 or 80% of the market.
Yeah.
Perhaps some people now can start doing something interesting, because we've all seen kit manufacturers assembling kits and selling by one or two at a time. Some crafty people in the backlog, like that workshop that Ian has, building one or two at a time. I think it's good to have some regulations to force that competition that the market completely blew.
I find it interesting that America, land of the free, the capital of capitalism, everyone by their merits, they are now looking at Google's effective monopoly, and they want to dismantle that, and they wanted to dismantle DJI's effective monopoly. They're basically going counter capitalism. Capitalism says he who has the best, toy wins. But when companies get so successful that they dominate a market, they step in and go, oh, no, that's not what we meant at all. We're going to disband you because we want competition. How does that work?
No, I'm not so sure about that, Bruce. It's not illegal to be a monopoly. What is illegal is how you got there. You got there. Because, for instance, if a competitor stuffs all the distribution channels so that no one else can place their products on the distribution channels because the distributors already have one product category that they sell, it's easy to a newcomer to come up and place a similar category product. So it's a really tricky thing.
There is a massive
monopoly.
I was going to say, there is a massive hole in the market right now, and Freefly is starting to fill this as well. If you look at the new Astro, it is it's a quad, but it's a industrial stroke commercial product. It's got a very good camera solution as an option. Yes, it's not as good as DJI, but they're allowing you to have the A7R4. There is a big hole because the M300 is a massive miss for most people who are like Louis and others like that, and someone could fall into that gap and build an aircraft with, they did it with the M600. There's a reason the M600 had 6 batteries, but people didn't mind that because you could still bring it on a plane. The problem they've done with this new aircraft is you can't bring it with you anyway because the batteries are too big. So there is a big hole in the market for someone to step into, and Freefly are getting close. If they just integrated and they've developed their own camera now this week. They've announced the start of this week they've got their own camera, not for the drone specifically, but it's a high-speed camera. So a lot of interesting stuff going on outside of DJI. None of it is quite together enough yet. None of it is that out-of-box experience. And interesting is Louis could, he's in a different country. He could walk into an enterprise dealer, pick up the product, set it up and fly it, and he knows what he's going to get out of the box with the DJI, don't you, Louis? You could pick up an M200 over there and get yourself up and running in 1 or 2 hours, couldn't you? There isn't many other companies you can do that with yet, but it will come in time.
What I want to know is when is someone going to truly integrate like a huge camera into a drone? Because I think we've seen with the M300 what 48 megapixel is it or something like that with the P1, but when are we going to go and get like a Phase 1 or a Hasselblad fully integrated into a drone?
You don't need the megapixel.
That's easy, James. That's very easy, James. Just go to Phase 1 Industrial Systems, and they have it, and they are ready to integrate with your drone through Mavlink. Just hang it there. Not so sure that you want to, but that's another issue. They have Phase 1 industrial cameras are astounding.
When I say I've flown with them, so yeah, like they're extremely good. But what I'm sort of talking about is more of a fully integrated, not like a stick it in a gimbal and fly with it from there, but more of a full integration approach.
The market will get what it demands. The question is, how many people need 100 megapixels?
I was going to say, how many of those would they sell if you did that? That's how many would they sell?
It's very good, and I can tell you for personal experience, it's very good to have a 72 megapixel camera hanging on a drone doing industrial inspections with a 72 or a 50 megapixel camera. Then you have a slight little problem, which is those generate humongous
huge, yes.
And when, for instance, on it's off.
The thing is, when
he's reset. You just reset him here. Reset him.
No.
The difference between a 50 megapixel camera and a 100 megapixel camera, though, is the fact that you can actually achieve survey grade accuracy. And I'm not talking about 1 to 200 style surveys, where you need 30 to 50 mil. I'm talking, laser scanner quality survey, and the size of the market for replacing the laser scanner with a drone survey is probably 10 times what it is for replacing GPS survey points. So, I would argue that there is a huge market there for it. It's just someone to integrate that with a high precision RTK sensor or a PPK sensor, and to be able to do that in a way that makes it easy, because at the moment everything is all a little bit rusty. It's all a little bit. It takes quite a lot of effort and skill to be able to implement that. Once you get to a point where it's off the shelf, then I think you'll see a real uptake in drone technology.
Are there 1,000 people on this?
Sorry. On a single phrase, James just opened up at least 4 cans of worms. PPK, RTK, large sensors, and flight type. Oh my God, those are so huge can of worms. You cannot have a faintest idea where you're going to. Sorry, Ian, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but are there even 1,000 people on this planet that want the setup? Because unless there's a minimum of probably 10,000 units, DJI aren't even going to even be interested in putting a product together. It's the development cost, okay, the Phase 1's a fantastic camera, but then you've got the whole lens issues. You've then got to try and get around all of the problems we're still struggling today with on smaller cameras. It's taken 3 years to get to the P1, which is a massive megapixel with a global shutter. This is the first camera of that size to have that in an integrated platform. Before that, it was the X4S and the Phantom 4 Pro version 2. That was it. There was no other cameras with that capability, and they were 1-inch sensor models. I think the problem is megapixels alone. It's easy to get fallen in love with those images, but when you are trying to deal with 1,000 of them into the data set and then checking that they're providing the data you want it to do, I just don't think the numbers are there. It's the same as LiDAR. The reason LiDAR hasn't really been widely adopted till now is the numbers are not there. Yes, the people are interested in it, but for the people who are interested, they're happy to go out and spend 100 grand on a machine to put it out there. Plus,
that's why, for instance, the yellow scan guys are still in.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen people put LiDAR under an M210.
They fly
Yeah.
Cessna.
And I'm like, sorry, what? And you see these people put like LiDARs under M110s, under the M210, and I'm going, are you crazy? It's not designed to carry that 1.5 kilos extra weight, but it's not that. The LiDAR can't get the full scan because the legs are in the way. So then you have to clean your data up afterwards.
They must be crazy because there's a real chance the bloody thing will fall out the sky.
Or get attacked by
really well on a stick as well, right?
They're not used on the M210s. They've used, I've seen yellow scans on the M600s.
Yeah.
Just on your previous point about the market size, like I completely disagree. I think the market size for that is 10 times bigger than the current drone market size. And I say that because how many roads are there in the world? How many railways are there in the world? How many engineering surveys are currently done using laser scanners? I think, look at how many laser scanners are sold across the world at the moment. Look at Topcon, look at Leica, look at all of these huge companies at the moment. They're doing quite well. They've got quite good turnovers. You only need to replace 10% of their market for laser scanners with drones, and suddenly you've got a huge market size. So I think there are multiple benefits. It's not just about megapixels. It's about the fact it's not actually anything to do with the resolution of the imagery that you're capturing. It's about how high you're flying.
Yes.
The problem is with drones, as soon as you get sort of 40 megapixels, you're having to fly at half the height that you would with 100 megapixels to achieve the accuracy that you need. So you're having to get around 1 to 2 millimeter per pixel to be able to achieve engineering, laser scanner grade surveying accuracies. And therefore, with a normal camera on a DJI, you're having to fly at sort of 10 to 15 meters above the ground, and regulations just don't allow that. Whereas if you get up to 100 megapixels, you can start getting up to sort of 30, 40 meters. And the capability of actually being able to do that on a practical level is a lot more achievable. So
Well,
I think
we're at a little tipping point. We're at a little tipping point now where we've all been playing around, even with $80,000 sensors on large multi-rotors. We're still playing around, really. We're at a tipping point where we were watching a crop duster. Did I say this last week on our ADS-B system here? My chum and I were just discussing, watching him go back and forth. Wouldn't it be nice to cover that sort of ground? Oh yeah, if we had a crop duster, we could do that. Put the sensors in a crop duster, make it completely autonomous. So you're just talking through to go into larger platforms. So we're at a tipping point now where we'll have large BVLOS platforms, which will be, like, for argument's sake, be half Cessna size. But because there's no man on board and no need to keep a man alive on board, you lose a load of weight, so you'd have the carrying capacity. And we're at that point. We're at the point where there's, for survey purposes, you mentioned roads and railways. That's your linear survey. You go off with your half-size Cessna full of the proper kit, and it just goes for the day and gets it done. We're talking different level stuff there.
But the gear for this game is here.
You can't do it with those.
You can do it now.
You can't. Yeah, you can, but you're talking about 1 to 500, 1 to 200 style topos.
No. You can do what you want.
Market.
You can put a phase one on an aircraft tomorrow. The camera exists, the tech exists. If the market was there, people would be building the aircraft to serve it. Integration comes later. If there was a company building 500 aircraft a month with phase ones on the bottom to survey this survey market that's demanding it, someone will notice. The problem is, we know it can change the industry, but number one, you're fighting against an existing industry that is going to do everything it has to do to maintain its monopoly and its control, which is the laser side of it, which you've already been saying. They are not going to want to move to something that they don't like or they don't necessarily see the benefit in yet. So they're going to push all of their influence and leverage to keep the existing tech in place. But if people do want it, it can be done. It could be done tomorrow there's you could build an aircraft with most of the integration, not quite as nice as what you get with DJI, but it would do the job, and it would do it well enough to show a use case. The problem is we know the gear's here and we know what we want to do with it. It's getting industry to realize it can do things better, and the problem with that is it takes years. It's like we're probably 5 to 10 years behind that curve yet before industry wakes up to the fact that this gear can do it. We're not even I just want to say we're not even replacing humans with drones. There are so many more jobs we could be doing with drones right now to take humans out of the danger loop, working at heights, various jobs that we could be doing with off-the-shelf aircraft, yet we're not because of fear legislation and what everything else is the barriers we all put in front of it.
I kind of agree with that, and I think it is industry realization as to what these machines are capable of. And I think with regards to with regards to sort of these very high accuracy surveys, when you start getting down to 1 to 50, 1 to 20 style surveys, these are very, very expensive. For a 500 meter length of track, you could be charging 30 or 40,000 pounds a survey. And that's done traditionally using laser scanners, people going out with like trolleys which they push along the railways and things like this. These aren't low value markets. These are, when you think about mapping is like, planning a survey in these contexts. It's 10 if not 20 times the value of the value in terms of the market size. But I agree that there aren't sort of accepted standards on how you can do that reliably and repeatably. But secondly, until you get mass adoption of these machines, there's not going to be that kind of growth, because at the moment what we've got is people going out there and flying their Phantoms and their Inspires and achieving 1 to 200 style survey accuracies. Until you kind of create a machine that is able to achieve those higher accuracies and in an easy way, people aren't going to adopt it because it's not the standard. It's not what they're used to. So I think if there was a machine that could do that, then I think you would see big uptake of it.
Well, we've just jumped from 20 megapixel up to 50 or whatever DJI have done. That's now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that adoption takes place and see where that ends up, isn't it?
How heavy is the phase 1? I've not looked at all. I've been lazy.
It's big.
About 1.4.
It's like a small child.
Kilos, roughly.
It's like a newborn baby.
No, the most weight of the phase 1 are the lenses.
Yeah,
which are extremely heavy and almost as expensive or more expensive than the camera itself.
Yeah, resolving 100 megapixel in itself is not easy.
Yeah, so it's only like 2.5 kilos, 3 kilos maximum.
No. You're talking about, I think it's just under a kilo for the camera body, and then 500-600 grams for the lens.
Oh, it's easy to put. Yeah, you'd easily get that in the airframe.
Come on, Mark. You're going to put
easily be done.
I reckon you could. I reckon you could.
Sorry, James. Are you going to put one phase 1 on your Believer, Mark?
I don't know if it will fit. It depends upon its height, but technically, there's no reason why, because it might push the Believer, might have to alter the battery a bit, but actually, it could probably take it, to be honest. But I wouldn't put one in that. I would do something different. But at that kind of size, you need a nice steady flying aircraft. You could build a nice multi-rotor if you wanted to do the job. PPK in there. Well, it depends how easy the phase 1 is to integrate to PPK. I would have to look. But you could, I don't think it'd be outrageous to do.
There's already code that you can link it to the Aplanix boards, and they're not just PPK, they're PPK plus very, very high accuracy IMUs as well.
You missed me.
So it's expensive, but I can see a time in maybe 3 years' time where you'll have a C2 Mark drone with a 100 megapixel camera on it.
Sub 4 kilo. People interested.
Sub 4 kilo, yeah.
Could be possible, but the problem is with that, you can't overfly. So you don't want one of them anyway. You don't want, you're kind of limited on your horizontal separation. So yeah, I would stick with the GVC aircraft, fly under that, so you can just overfly when you need to. When there's a road or a bridge, just go over it. Won't be a problem.
Just run over.
Am I
it,
back?
is it? You are.
You went somewhere. Oh right. Sorry.
Colin's asking about the LiDAR and the M300. I assume he means the new one. Let's talk about that quickly and then go to the pub.
Yeah, roughly 50 to 80 grand. It's upset the industry a little bit. That I will say. It has caused quite the stir, let's just say. And I get it, but I sort of don't. But yeah, it has caused quite the stir.
Why do you say that has stirred the market? It's 50 to 70 degrees aperture LiDAR, not as many, not as good resolution as the market leader Velodyne.
Agreed.
The Phantom 4 camera attached to it. I'm not sure. It's a multi-return LiDAR, so you can do much better with less money.
Yes,
it's very meh, but it's not that. I don't think that's what Ian's getting at. I'll let you carry on, Ian.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it's interesting. It certainly appears to have rattled a few cages and it made a push towards, again, pushing people away from DJI partners and move them towards maybe working with other people. And that's the impression I got.
Well, I think
it's only guaranteeing 10 centimeters in vertical or horizontal accuracy. So the best you're going to get is 1 to 500. If you can crack the 1 to 200, RICS band, I think it's band F from memory, then it opens up it doubles your market size. And there are, there's I forget, what's it, Yellow Scan, do a LiDAR sensor which should do sort of 20, 30 mil. Definitely sub 50 repeatably. So, if you're going to be spending that kind of money, 80 to 100 grand on a platform, then are you going to go for the DJI, which is doing 10 centimeters, or the Yellow Scan, and spend a bit more and do a Yellow Scan, which can do, sub 50? Probably you're going to go down the Yellow Scan route as a surveyor. That's just my gut feeling on that. But it's good to see them developing stuff, but I don't see it as a major game changer.
No.
I think it's like the rest of the drones that the DJI launched is good enough that can cover some situations at the price point that you must be really interested to jump. If you're on the market to make a business, then and keep doing what you were doing before.
Yeah, I think a lot of the sensor integrators or people that have been working with partners with DJI, a bit upset with the latest releases, but I'm not quite sure why they think they had a golden ticket to always be the sensor providers for DJI. I'm not quite sure.
I'd also argue that they've been very slow to do anything. Skyport was opened up over 2 years ago to other manufacturers. Now, is it DJI that's holding other company back? Is it themselves? But there hasn't been that much developed for it yet at all. Very little.
Do you remember what is the admission fee to get on Skyport?
No, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap, was it?
Shut up. It's
was it 10 grand or was it a grand? I can't remember.
No, it was more than that.
Was it? I've forgotten. It's been that while. It was a long time ago. It was quite a lot of money.
Would it be the market for the M300? The M300, I think you're going to find them in a super discount sale back end of next year.
Well, watch this space.
Stacked up everywhere.
the prediction will be they will end the M200 first, you know, because what they will do is force people into that corner. That's what you would do naturally. You know, if you've got a new product and you're selling more of the old one than the new one, you end the old one, don't you? That's what
And the industrial dealers are pushing very hard for you to get the M300s.
Yeah.
To be honest, given the safety track record of the M200, it's probably not a bad thing.
Well, that's why but I've had 3 dealers who have plainly not noticed that I ran the and this is from different countries from around the world. 3 different dealers saying, please put stuff about the M300 up. And I said, I did. Look, here's all the stuff. Here's all the stuff about the sensors. I did. So this last week, I've had 3 dealers say, please put more stuff about the M300 up. That's never happened before. That's never happened before.
And it's entirely through the dealers now. The M300 was the first aircraft where DJI changed a lot of how they do things, and it's all dealer. You know, all support is through the dealer. Everything is through the dealer. And whilst before DJI, most have put the support through enterprise dealers, they did get involved. Now they don't get involved in any of it. It's you go to your dealer will handle you, your dealer will deal with you. And that's why you'll probably see
that must be why it is then. Yes.
Yeah, because it's all through the dealer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
why do you think they've done that?
I got to be careful. Sorry, do you want to carry on, Louis?
No, that's why I'm still waiting for the MESDS for the paperwork for the M300 batteries.
Yeah.
Keep waiting.
Because they're coming from a dealer.
Yeah. They'll have to come through a dealer. Everything does, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and it would have been through enterprise before, would it have been?
Yes, would have been the enterprise support that no longer exists. You know, and
that'll be the one.
You know, I'm good friends with a number of those people. They are good, you know, so 1 or 2 of them, you can love them or hate them, but they are good guys. And they were, DJI completely changed their model at that same time the M300 hit for enterprise. And enterprise was very much changed and how they deal with everything. It was all brought to the dealers, and the idea was to give the dealers more control. But I suspect with that comes you need to hit the numbers. At the end of the day, it's about sales. And that's what it's going to be down to. And right now, they must be finding it difficult to shift those aircraft. Especially in the US.
Yeah, the current situation we're all in, isn't it? I mean, who's going to be rushing out to buy that $80,000 sensor at the moment, unless you've got really good work for it, you know?
And I've seen a few for sale. I've seen a few M300s coming up for sale as well.
Does it have a green flashing light and remote ID as per the EU regulations?
The problem is the M200 is a great platform. Okay, it had problems, but there is resolve today. And actually, it would never have had problems if people knew how to fly them properly. That's why Louis has never had one fail, because Louis knows what he's doing, and as does many people. However, the problem was many of them were flown in wet weather, which it was never, you know, okay, that you can argue with marketing on this one a little bit, but it's still a fantastic platform, and trying to tear people away from it, it's very, very difficult. And the M300 doesn't suit anyone. It just, well, it does. It suits police forces who like to spy on people, because that's what it appears to have been made for.
I wonder which nation would have the most use for that. Who would use it the most?
I know quite a few operators who are quite excited about it, though. The M300. But the thing which I'm kind of probably most concerned about is I saw the video of like one of the motors being shut off during flight, and the thing like plummeting about 20 meters before it recovers. And I kind of wonder, with the range of payloads that it carries, how reliable that sort of 3-motor recovery would be.
It isn't. It was first put into the Inspire 2. Here's a little something for those who don't know. You know, this was beta tested many moons ago in the Inspire 2. It enters a rapid orbit to try and keep itself going. The M300 has sort of brought this out officially, but it's a controlled crash. That's what it is more than. This is about not hitting someone, not recovering the aircraft, you know.
Doesn't it just glide safely to the ground?
Yeah. The remote ID that it'll have on in most of the world will be the UAVionics one that's just received its patent, James, and that's I've put that link in. So that's what that there's big moves afoot all around the world right now that's happening behind thinly hidden meetings about remote ID. It's weird. Something's definitely going to be with us by January or February of next year that none of us are going to like.
What, in the UK or US?
Everywhere, I think.
Everywhere.
That's right, because the French, as usual, got their own system.
The French have got their system, yeah.
The thing is, I don't really get these like extra devices that are being put on drones for remote ID, because you already have a telemetry link which has already got at least 500 meters.
I'm looking for the red card. I have a bit of common sense is coming along.
Your C2 link is already sending data down to the ground, all of the data you need for remote ID. So why not just have an open standard where you say, here you go, like plug this into your phone, like put this little bit further on your phone, now you can detect aircraft.
James, two forbidden words, open and standards. No. It has to do like I want, and like Mark wants, and even Jacinda here wants a different system for remote ID. So each one of us wants their own remote ID. And it cannot be
how are we all individually going to get our own little slice of the pie if we haven't created a device to put on something that's going to be the best device in the world, honest?
Mine's just a big permanent marker pen just right along the side. It works for manned aircraft very well.
Bruce Chain. I'm using Bruce Chain for my remote ID. It's the latest in technology. It's going to be available in the next 6 months. I'm just trying to get it past the CAA at the moment.
Everything's available.
I was going to build one as well, and when you talk to the CA, they're absolutely, it can be hard work at times. Apparently someone from the technical department was going to call me, but they never did, which, kind of not surprising. Everyone's busy at the minute. But the problem is, why do we need remote ID if we're going to have electronic conspicuouscy? They are two different things completely. So remote ID becomes pointless if we jump into electronic conspicuousy.
Okay, with it. So what? Because James loves this word as well. I'm waiting for James to have a T-shirt that says "I love electronic conspicuity" or conspiracy. It's his favorite buzzword, right? What is it in your eyes, James and thing? Because I want to hear you both describe it.
So to me, it shows the aircraft tracking as it flies. This is electronic conspicuousy, by the way. Yeah. So as you can see it as it flies, and it tracks on a web page or a server like Open Glider Network or Flight Radar. It appears and it tells you the aircraft, and it'll tell you its ID. It'll say it's a drone. Basically, you just see it tracking across. That's all it should need to say. It shouldn't need to say that I own it. It shouldn't need to say anything else. It just says it's a UAS. It's flying at this height and it's heading in this direction, and that's all it do.
So, James, is that what your belief is?
The devil's in the detail, isn't it, with this? Because there's this is the CAA's perspective on this. So I sat through a meeting 3 or 4 weeks ago where they defined the differences. Electronic conspicuity is a requirement based on safety. Remote ID is a requirement based on security. Now the difference is, do you want to be conspicuous if you're flying your, do you want to be detectable from 20 kilometers away if you are flying your drone in the park, or you're flying your model aircraft in the park? Or should there just be a requirement that if you're within 300 or 400 meters of that aircraft, as a police officer, that I should be able to detect where that aircraft is? And that's the main difference. It's mainly around when can I detect that aircraft, and also the requirements, the safety requirements and the certification requirements for such a device.
This is where I have a problem with it. So remote ID is because I'm flying a drone in the said park, right? So the remote ID is meant to show the location of the pilot. I'm flying it. I'm stood here. It's a big hello. Come and punch me in the face and take my drone. That's what remote ID says to me. You know, it's because people think that they're important and the drone is spying on them. You know, people fall into this fallacy that everything that we do in the world is all about each one of us. You know, I'm walking through the park, so that drone has to be spying on me. Therefore, I'm going to call the police. The police are going to come. Is it there? Get out a little device, and can they see if there's a drone here? Instantly, Bruce has been flying his drone. Bruce is still there flying. He's the one getting in trouble, but Bruce will go, but it wasn't me. It was another drone. And it's like, prove it. And it's like, well, how can you? It's, you know, it's only going to help people that stick to the rules get done. That's what remote ID is for.
But we have conspicuity today. ADSB is electronic conspicuity.
And you have that.
But that's you only have it in your DJI. You don't have out.
Yeah. No. But I mean, we have a solution to this. You know, we keep hearing UTM. We can't do this. We can't do that. We can't do this. We have this. This is huge. We're not going to say any of it's perfect. We know it can be spoofed. We know there's problems. There's problems with license plates on cars. But we constantly hear about we can't do stuff without electronic conspicuity and this and that. Yet we have 20-year-old technology that's here today.
You only need electronic conspicuity, as far as I'm concerned, if you're flying beyond visual line of sight. If you're flying within visual line of sight, you've got your eyes. That, like, there's no safety implication because you can ensure that you don't hit another aircraft because you can see your drone. Yeah. As soon as you fly beyond visual line of sight, then you need to be able to see what's around you. That's where electronic conspicuity comes in. The difference is that if you go and have that requirement that you only need electronic conspicuity if you're going beyond visual line of sight, then what about all the visual line of sight drones that are out there on the market, which can be flown beyond visual line of sight, like a Mavic 2 or whatever? Though, if you're a police officer at number 10 Downing Street and there's a drone that suddenly flies over, how do you know who that is? And that's the problem.
That's happened, doesn't it? That's actually happened. They were flying. What's that park in Downing's? Yeah, just outside. The bloke flew there and they said, "Oh, don't do that. Carry on." You know, there's the trouble with the electronics conspicuity is remote ID. Get my stuff is that the standard that is open because that's one of the rulings and is Wi-Fi, the remote ID one, is that anybody with a handheld device will be able to see not only within range, not only the aircraft, but where the operator is. It's a prerequisite that it transmits both or relays both, and that's just not cricket.
But I like this idea. Because it means I can spoof my thing, and the police will be looking over the other side of the pond to where I'm standing and flying, because that's where the remote ID has told them that the pilot's standing. So the people who want to do bad things are going to be able to protect themselves very easily by simply spoofing the electronics and basically setting the police on a wild goose chase while they do whatever it is they want to do, which is evil.
And
to be fair, I've got absolutely no interest in remote ID whatsoever. It's not. I have no financial interest in it. I have no technical interest in it whatsoever. The only people who are interested in it are probably security type people who are like paranoid about it. And like I personally don't really have a view on it. It's like it's quite easy to do. Just develop an app. Let manufacturers come to you, insert their bit of firmware, and suddenly now you can see all the drones that are around. Like that would be the way to do it. But whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, I can see both sides of it. But for me, it's not very interesting because it doesn't really get the drone industry forward. All it does is just means that you can now be seen by people who, if you're doing bad things, then you can now be seen.
No, but I'll be using it to gather commercial data on where you're doing your flying, so that I can then go and go in and pitch for those jobs. I'll just have my receiver network to do that. I'll follow your van. I'll see where you're going. And that's what
I'm going to do, Gary, is I'm going to partner up with you and all my mates are, and we're going to build a national network. Where we
network
can
of seeing where
operators.
James' delivery drones are
James's
operating.
business is operating, and because it's an open standard remote ID, we'll be able to actually build up a picture of where he is at any time. We'll actually know when he's not home as well, and we'll know where his home is because he might take his drone home at the end of the day and fly the batteries down in his back garden as well, because he wants to just make sure they're at the correct level. So,
to be honest, though, Ian, you can only detect my operational safety cases if you go and look at the recent caps that have come out, because like about half of them are in them. And I wonder whether like the CA are in breach of copyright in terms of the amount of information that you kind of see in these caps coming out. And I swear to God that they look at operational safety cases that are submitted to them, and they derive a lot of the information from them on how they actually produce them. And I kind of get it. I'm not complaining too much, but it does feel a little bit like them, cheating a little bit.
Have we turned all the way back round the circle back to GDPR? Have we managed to close the loop to GDPR again? Then?
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because if you were able to build this much data up and have a network with a remote ID, you would build up a massive amount of data on your competitors, because how many of them fire their drones up at home just to check them before you go out for the following day? The second you do that, it's going to start transmitting. It's going to start sending that information out there, handing your data over. So, this raises huge concerns, yet no one gives a toss. It's fine. No, there's no problem at all. We're just going to let everyone see your data.
If you're in a meeting with the CAA and you just use the magic word safety, everyone perks up, and whatever you just
no. The magic word is compliance.
Safety compliance. Then you doubled up with safety.
In what order, Bruce?
Compliance is always the priority. Safety is a side effect of compliance, is what they'll tell you.
C comes before S in the dictionary.
Very good. Imagine, it's all about, people are worried about if a bad person's going to do something and they can find a bad drone user. Trust me, if I wanted to do something bad with a drone, you'd never see it coming, you'd never know it was me, and you'd never see the drone leave. Right?
He's thought this through, hasn't he? He's really planned this out to the last degree.
I wouldn't need electronic conspicuousy. I don't care about that. I'm not putting it on because I'm a bad person, so I don't give a rat's about that. I'm not going to have remote ID because I'm a bad person. I'm not going to have that. Do something truly bad.
If I had made a mistake getting an operator number and ID and registering, and have I made a mistake doing all that and fitting ADSB? Have I made a mistake doing all that? Blast. Yeah.
I wonder if those Chinese drones that are launched from the back of the van and fly as a swarm for 5 hours, they all have remote ID and conspicuity.
Do you know?
Imagine how much it costs to register them.
Yeah. What really annoys me about that? People are sorry, let you go a second, Mark, but people are saying, "What a despicable weapon! This, that, the other." A, we've got that, and B, they launched a truly horrible weapon to go underneath the Predator a couple of weeks ago. So it's not it's the sort of moral outrage. It's like, well, hang on a minute, we've got just the same.
It's
being killed will never be fun. It'll never be a popular pastime.
Come on.
To be fair though, like remote ID is, let's bring it back to the 3 C's: the clueless, the careless, and the criminals.
Very good, James. Very good.
Remote ID is all about the clueless and the careless. The counter UAS is criminal. That if you're going to be number 10 Downing Street, you're going to have a counter UAS system on top of your roof. Like that's the solution, because you can't guarantee that the person who's going to commit a terrorist act is going to be broadcasting their remote identification out of their drone while they're doing it. That's just stupid to come up with that, and it's probably got to be non-cooperative as well. It's got to have to be a non-cooperative counter UAS. But the solution's easy. Like, first of all, you should only be able to detect things via remote ID if you're a law enforcement officer or an official of some description. There should be the CIA should come up with a new registration scheme so that they can register who these people are and come up with another new fantastic scheme to be able to work out who these law enforcement officers are who can detect those things. Or they could maybe make them detectable to the public, but not anonymously, so that you can say, okay, well, I can record some data. If there is a drone that's outside my house peering in through my window, I can record some data. I can't tell you where that drone is or where the operator was, and I can't tell you who that was, but I can record that information and then pass that on to a law enforcement.
Like a number plate on a car.
Yeah, basically. So some signature which you can then go to a law enforcement officer, pass over that data, and they can say, oh yeah, there was that guy who was flying outside your house. Okay, we're going to go knock on his door. Like that I got no issues with, as long
because
as
he's got a model helicopter and he lives near Gatwick Airport. Yeah, but the thing is, why are we doing this? I mean, if someone wants to really, as was previously stated, if someone really wants to do something bad, they're not going to buy a drone and strap 500 grams of Semtex on it and fly it over number 10 Downing Street. They're going to put on their national costume and they're going to load themselves up with a suicide belt and they're going to walk up and knock on the door, and when someone answers, boom. So are they actually frisking everybody as they walk down the street? I mean, do we have to have, remote ID so we know what our religious affiliations are because we're a higher threat? Really, seriously, these are small craft. Why all the big, or in America, they use a U-Haul truck loaded up with ammonium nitrate and diesel. That's how they got rid of the FBI in Oklahoma. I mean, these things, and they use airliners. They use airliners in New York City. They don't use drones. Drones are not an effective solution to this problem. So why are we taking this paranoia to the highest possible level, assuming every drone is out to get us at a regulatory level? It's silly.
And if you go about privacy, so let's say you turn around and say, well, drones, it's a privacy issue because a drone can spy on someone. Well, in that case, they need to come out with a registration for everyone that owns a camera. Because high-powered camera...
Especially Ian. He's got lots of cameras. He should be locked up.
He needs a camera operator ID because he has a high-powered camera that can capture an image of someone over a kilometre away getting changed. Like, wasn't there a royal that was caught getting changed?
No, you've been watching Mark. Don't put can into this.
To be fair, dogs are quite dangerous as well. And I think a great system would be that if you had to register your dog, I don't know if that's ever been done before or anything, but
let me think about that. Didn't they get rid of the dog license?
I don't know. Look, we're definitely going down the road of nonsense here. So I feel that is a good time for us to pull the plug on this before someone comes on, knocks on my door yet again because of something that flipping Bruce has said. Because
Gordon has saved it.
Has Gordon saved it? Oh, Gordon has saved it. Yeah, Gordon has saved it. And let's just blame Bruce. At the end of the day, it's important to just blame Bruce in all things. So no, it must be time to go. Good people. What am I hearing now? Is that coming?
Is it the outro music? You got new outro music?
Yeah, it's my new outro music.
Did we hear it here first? Yeah, we have to.
Are you making music out of servos?
Yep.
He's on straight onto his next job, radio DJ or whatever he is.
Yes,
live from West Wales. I'm locked down with you, so
you'll be sitting there with his wax cylinders going like this, eh?
Absolutely. Right, let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much, Divya, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for putting up with us, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you all again at 2100 GMT next Tuesday or Wednesday if you're in the other side of the world. And I'll probably be doing something daily at about 12 or 1 GMT, roughly-ish, thereabouts, just a brief news update. If there are any stories you like in SES News, please share them via your socials. We appreciate that. We don't do any of these money grabbing schemes. Gentlemen, everyone, look after yourselves. Wear a mask, wash your hands. See you all next week. Tuesday. Bye bye.